We're here with head coach Jenny Michael of the LMU volleyball team. Just kind of get to know the head coach. And coach, let's start off first off. This is your second year at the helm of LMU. How did you get involved with coaching in volleyball?
I was very fortunate when I was a player in college, actually. I was approached by one of the coaches in the conference with another school, and he asked me if I had any plans after I graduated. And at that time, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I was kind of looking at becoming an architect or engineer, looking at some different things like that. And then he offered me a graduate assistant position. I said, sure, why not? So that's how I went from Francis Marion to Armstrong Atlantic. And it was there that I kind of got my first taste of coaching and being on the other side of things. And honestly, I fell in love with it.
So you started off as assistant coach, Armstrong Atlantic. Mm-hmm. What was kind of the path that brought you to LMU?
Oh, man. As with a lot of things, it's sometimes more about who you know or who they know. And it was when I was at Francis Marion, my last couple of years, our head coach there was Sonny Kirkpatrick. And Sonny and the former coach here, Mike Smith, were good buddies because they've, coached against each other for several years and things like that. Well, after I finished grad school, I actually moved out to Seattle. And while I was in Seattle, Sonny went from Francis Marion to Troy University. So when he made the move to go to Troy, he calls me up and says, I'd love for you to come be my assistant, think about moving back east. And I was like, decisions get made, and I decided to go back to the Southeast. So Sonny and I were at Troy together for several years, and he saw where Mike had resigned. And whenever you see a coach resigns, your first thought for everybody is, oh man, like what happened, So he calls up Mike, he's like, hey buddy, are you okay? And Mike's like, no, everything's great, It's like, it was my decision, and he was still here, doing great, everything like that. And so through their conversation, kind of said, well, my assistant's been, looking at making the next step, and conversations happen, resumes get sent, one thing leads to another.
You get the head coaching job at LMU. What is different from being a head coach here from being an assistant coach at Troy?
A lot of the differences, honestly, I don't like, in the sense of I'm not a big fan. I don't like being contained in the office. I like to be out and about, especially if it's nice out. I want to be outside or doing different things. I love being in the gym. So with head coaching, there's responsibilities of keeping track of the budget and paperwork and just different things like that. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't really like all that. But
Troy's a Division I college.
Mm-hmm.
You take over the head coaching job at LMU Division II. What are the big differences on the volleyball scene from Division I to Division II?
I think the main difference that I've noticed consistently really just has to do with the monies available. The budgets that we had there versus the budgets, not just at LMU. We actually have a very nice budget, but just consistently across the board for Division II. But you just learn to adapt and adjust. And, instead of, pre-gaming at, an Olive Garden, we look for something more like a Jason's Deli. I mean, it's just you spend within your budget and you go with it.
All right, now you've been at the helm here for the Lady Rail Splitters for 2 years. Mm-hmm. What has been the difference from year one to year two?
It's really funny. I was actually just talking with one of our young ladies yesterday. I mentioned it was nice out, and we talked on the ride over here. I couldn't be inside. I had a bunch of errands to do, and it was just so pretty out here. We just sat outside at one of the picnic tables and just talked, and it's really nice this year because I feel like I can breathe for the first time in pretty much a year and a half. I know a little bit more of what to anticipate, whether it's travel to certain gyms or, how long certain things take. And the biggest thing that I try to realize and remember, whether we're on the road or at home, is you can't expect anything and you have to be ready for things to change.
Is it any different this year from last year with the girls, knowing that some of these girls this year are your recruits?
I don't know that it's different in the sense, because honestly, one of the reasons why I came here was for the girls that were already here, because I believed in them and what they said. And I know a lot of coaches talk about like bringing in their kids, but honestly, from the beginning, I've felt like we were all in it together, and we were all here for each other. So I really don't feel a difference of, oh, this was my player, this is, somebody else's player. I mean, we're here for each other.
Was there any anxiety knowing that you were getting ready to take over the helm from a program that's been to the NCAA tournament and trying to keep up that?
Absolutely. I mean, who wants to be the one that comes in and just screws everything up, I mean, Mike did a great job of building a first-class program, and they had a lot of success. And I liked that pressure, though, because at Troy, we weren't necessarily super successful. We were always fighting just to try to get into the conference tournament. And now, I mean, we're fighting not just to get in it, we're fighting to win it. And same thing with regional tournament. I mean, we're not just fighting to get in it. I mean, that's a constant battle every year, but once you get there, you're fighting to go further and further with that opportunity of trying to go to the Elite Eight. I mean, that was something that was never even a thought in our day or in our training when we were at Troy.
Let's talk about the day-to-days now. You talked about paperwork, and nobody really likes paperwork at all. Let's talk about like practices and how a typical week for your team goes.
We come in off the road on Saturday night. We usually have Sundays off. And, the way our conference is set up, we have a lot of Tuesday, Friday, Saturday matches. So you get about half a second to rest, and then you have to start preparing for the next game. So Monday practices, we spend preparing for Tuesday games. And then Wednesday, we'll have a little bit of time to recover and reflect and improve on what we learned from Tuesday's match. Then you've got Thursday coming around, and you're preparing for the matches Friday and Saturday.
Is there any difference preparing for teams where it's not conference or non-conference?
A little bit, in the sense of, your conference opponents and even arguably some of your regional opponents that you're going to see every year, you just know one another a lot better. They know you, you know them. There's a chance for little, rivalries to build in there, especially, obviously everybody that's close, like Carson Newman and Tusculum. That's been really exciting, learning more about the history, not just in our sport, but in other sports that goes into the LMU rivalry with those schools.
Wingate's kind of the powerhouse of the conference. This year they finally suffered their first conference victory or loss in what has been a few years at least. Do you prepare any different for teams like Wingate and maybe like a Catawba that was top of the conference last year as opposed to some of the other teams?
We respect each opponent, and we prepare for each opponent based on their strengths. And at the same time, one of the things that we really try to focus on is going off of our strengths, and sometimes not being so worried about what's going on the other side of the net, but taking care of our side, because we feel pretty confident that if we can control what's going on our side of the net, then regardless of who's on the other side, we have an opportunity to at least be fighting in that match.
Away from volleyball, when it's just time for you to cut loose with your assistant coaches and the players, what is that like?
Well, it's different, because there's things that perhaps, we do as a staff that we don't necessarily partake in along with the student athletes. But I tell you, one of the things that I've really enjoyed sometimes on our road trips coming back, it helps if we've won, that, we'll play, some of us Northerners, us Yankees, will play a little game called euchre, and we'll play some euchre in the back of the bus and just have fun and laugh. And, inevitably, one team has the opportunity to dominate another one, and there's a little trash talking going on. So some scary moments with some of those trash talking moments, but it's been fun nonetheless.
You're getting ready to wrap up your second season here at the helm. What's this ride been like so far, at least through the first 2 years?
It's been awesome. It's been really great, and a lot of people say that you get so caught up in the beginning that you maybe don't necessarily enjoy the journey. And this year especially, I've really tried to enjoy the moments and the opportunities that have come up. We have a big senior class. We have 4 seniors, and it's going to be really sad to see them go. So just trying to really enjoy spending time with them on and off the court, and just enjoy it. It's been fun.
All right. Thanks, Coach Michael.
Thanks.
Don't turn away. When we come back, we're coming back with volleyball action.